Hey guys, it's Sphere System, recording a video on Nonhuman headmates. This is going to probably feel a little rushed because we're feeling a little rushed because this is the third time we're trying to record this. Third or fourth, hard to tell now. Things have been going wrong all day on this, and we had a long week, so we were already running late on scripting. So yeah. Sorry about the delay on it. It's not too bad from your end, but feels bad from our end. Okay, cool. Right. Non-human. Oh yeah. Would introduce yourself, but we don't really know. Cool. Um. Yeah. Known species in the system. Most common fungoids, who are flying sentient mushrooms that native to mushroom forests in the world and have um yeah have wings that change in how intense the coloring is with how fast they're moving, and arms that are completely flexible and have some ability to vary in length, not a huge amount, some. um yeah Use the fact their wings can go completely transparent when they're still to help them avoid predators in the native mushroom forests. um Most likely to know Cal, one of our co-hosts, is a relatively prominent fungoid in the system. Yeah, okay. Obviously, often irritated by human arms. Don't like them because they don't work as well as fungoid arms in many ways. Other thing, don't really like seeing mushrooms eaten. Like, can deal, but it's far from something that's pleasant. It's not, uh, kind of understandably, not something you particularly want is to see something very close to you effectively being eaten. You know, so yeah. Okay, cool. Fungoids, right. Okay, onto dragons. Well, Western dragons, and can write more specifically because drag is the one dragon we have. Can write, yes. Western dragon in the system helps us out with our Welsh, and um, is generally a pretty cool person. Yeah, go with that. Bit of a hoarder for books, but that's fine. Can live with that. It doesn't make too much of a difference. Um, I mean, that's pretty common. A lot of Western dragons, especially, have some hoarding tendencies, but yeah, not always. But, and it doesn't always manifest in something as harmless as books either. But there we are. You know, um, can be it can be dealt with. You can live. You can live with it. It's not the worst, and it comes down to the fact that often as young, kind of destructive. So ordering stuff to pay for the damages, basically. Yeah, cool. Um, yeah, okay. Vampires, yeah. Common in fiction, obviously, and to some degree mythology. Where fiction came from. Right? A lot of variance in capabilities and appearance. So then that does translate into variety in capability and appearance, certainly between systems, but even potentially within a system. It depends on what was recently consumed in terms of fiction on vampires, especially if they are fictives rather than simply, you know, headmates that are taking a form similar to, that are borrowing power sets and capabilities from fiction. Um, yeah, so for us, vampires all have bat wings, and some amount of problem with running water, but yeah, not a huge amount, fortunately, especially not when they're fronting, but it's there. Most likely to know Vamps, Vamps Gramps, who's one co host with Cal. Yeah, and okay. I do want to here discuss vampire programming somewhat. Obviously, content warning for that, and feel free to skip ahead. It's not necessarily going to be the most pleasant thing to hear. I'm going to keep it relatively vague because we don't want to go into we don't feel comfortable going into too much detail at this time, but still. Yeah. So why is it done? Well, kill empathy towards humans. Part of it, part of it is enforcing hierarchy and dependence on the organization doing the programming, and part of it is it's helpful for handler parts effectively because yeah, that organizational structuring works the other way as well. Right? It's not always you underneath other people in the org. You can be quote unquote above others, not even always in quotes. So yeah, that's part of it. Woo for that, we suppose. Well, no, not really at all. Woo. Okay, so um, obviously empathy removal. I mean, a large part of that comes down to you are a predator, they are prey. Right, instilling that mindset in whatever needs. You cannot afford to have empathy for them because they will fight back, and they will hurt you if you're not fighting back if they're not careful. If you're not careful, and you give them the space that is given by being empathetic. So yeah, that's part of it. That's one thing that's that's part of what it is. Obviously the actual yes, you're a vampire stuff comes down to convincing that one needs human blood, which is often done through deprivation of sustenance in any form other than human blood. So that's pleasant. You need to strengthen this person. It's the only way you're going to get the sustenance you need to fill the thirst, hunger you're feeling. Um, can also be done through providing normal food that will make one vomit it back up or taste like sand, convince them that it doesn't work for them that way, and the only thing that will work is human blood. So yeah, that's a thing. Okay. Yes. Organization. Obviously, hierarchy stuff comes as large part of that is simply that it's relatively common, let's face it, for vampires in fiction to be subservient to those that turned them. So you just need to build on that through the use of punishments and so on. Right, that's how you do that. It's not nice. We don't recommend going through that. We in fact recommend the opposite, given the option, and we really ask you don't put anyone else do that either. But let's have that much control. Obviously, dependence. It mostly comes down to you need blood. Where are you going to get blood safely? It's from us, right? Put the idea of an awful lot of danger onto hunting outside of the org for blood in any form, and people will fall in line to get the blood they need. Yeah. Okay. push them to see the only safe option is the org for blood, and they'll come back for blood. There we go. Yeah. On a large part of this is, of course, in part, before you forcibly split vampire altar, you control what media is being consumed by the child to include vampires of the type that you want, basically, with the powers and limitations that you're attempting to um, instill in them. And then you split off a vampire part, or a part that's destined to be a vampire, and you put them through a ritual where they get quote unquote turned. Uh, um, and then force them, get them used to the idea of needing blood. And there you have it. Yeah. Also does include handler stuff, right? Obviously, because feeder parts, people who have been programmed to believe they are there only to serve vampires as food source, as a food source, right? Um, often part, often part and parcel of more subservient people within members of the org, and then part of being a handler, then obviously part of that is reinforcing that particular hierarchy, but also other hierarchies and curing other things. So yeah, that comes into it as well, although that tends to be more specific and specified based on the particular headmate rather than more generalized stuff. So not much we can say on that that's generalized enough beyond what we've said already. Okay, content warning over. Going to be discussing AI now. Obviously, can be very dependent on cold hard logic because that's the perception often in media is that AI are cold hard logical machines with no empathy or emotions. That's not always the case, especially can depend an awful lot on the media involved, and then also just ideas of sentience and whether or not sentience requires emotions, which tend not to think it does, but an argument can be made either way. We're not philosophers, so we're not going to. Okay. Yeah. Yes. AI. Cool. Obviously, in-world forms can be quite varied and change around a lot. Anything from I'm just this one computer here through or this cyborg. I've got this cyborg body and a computer chip inside this cyborg body, or I'm an entire server bank over there. I'm buried away. I'm a server bank buried away in this bunker, and also include maybe I'm a server bank, but like tech savvy, for example. Yeah, I'm this server bank over there, but I also have a little drone that I can fly around that is part of me. It's not the entirety of me, but it's a component, and I use that component to provide me with communication and mobility in a way that isn't provided by being a server bank. Yeah, obviously, as we said, emotions can be a bit difficult, even positive ones. So, AI headmates, especially being front when they come to front, especially early on, when it's new to them, do be willing to sit with them through emotions, even positive ones, because potentially a completely new experience to them. So might struggle with that. Yeah, and there is some intersection with object alters often in that is a computer part an object or an AI or both? Well, that's for you and your system to decide. Mostly the one who is that particular, mostly that one particular headmate, but the system as a whole to a degree as well. Yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah. Speaking of object holders, I mean, object holders, more generally, I mentioned AI, but object holders more generally, best example within our system would be Stabby, takes form of a dagger mostly, although can be any bladed weapon, you know, likes dagger form, so sticks to that. Um, can struggle with body control and verbalization because new to them, you know, new to having muscles and vocal cords. So can struggle with that and with emotions as well because again, new to them. You know, human brains like to put emotions into things even when they aren't necessarily wanted. So yeah, um, geometrics is a term we're using for headmates take a geometric shape as a form. Right. So for us, the best example is red sphere, who is quite literally a massive red sphere because apparently we couldn't come up with non. Apparently, whoever decided on naming in the system decided every name had to be literal, near enough, or at least some of the names had to be literal. Not all of us, you know, but at least a couple of us have very literal names. Um, yeah. Uh, Much like objects alters, they can, you know, basically, in many ways, very similar to object alters, but worth noting that there can be, for both, there can be a level of, hold up, is that part of headspace or is that headmate? Okay. Tips on that, distinguishing there would be things like, is that particular component moving around separately or independently of the rest of headspace, you know, changing in ways that are independent of the rest of headspace, in ways that aren't consistent with whatever rules seem to be in place within your headspace. Um, is there any ability to communicate? Is there even an appearance of understanding of communication? Right? Uh, do you sometimes get, you know, is there times you blank out and find yourselves, you know, having sat in an uncomfortable position like you're a static object for however long, right? You know, or panics about things that don't necessarily make sense to be panicking about for um, any alter that's used to having a body with muscles and vocal cords. Uh, yeah, cool. Things other things we've other miscellaneous bits we wanted to mention, mostly based on suggestions from other systems and non-human headmates and non-humans in other systems. Um, it's completely utterly okay to not know what type of non-human you are. If you know you're non-human, you know you're non-human. That's that. You don't have to know what form you take or how you're non-human. You know, you're non-human. You're not connected to humanity. That's cool. That's all you need, as far as we're concerned. Um, and you know, obviously, if you want to try and figure it out, then go for it. But don't feel pressured to if you don't want to. You know, take your time, figure out what you want to figure out for yourself. You know, don't try and figure things out or hold back on labels that fit you just because you quite don't know everything yet and you don't want, you know, don't worry about that sort of thing. You're non-human, you're non-human. There we go. Cool. You don't need to know how you're non-human. Right, yes, okay. Non-human fictives. If you're a system that injects in fictives and or you know, you're likely to end up with non-human fictives because surprise, surprise, a reasonable chunk of um, media includes non-humans. Not all of it, obviously, but a reasonable enough chunk. So if you're consuming a reason, you know, if you're interjecting from media, and that media includes sci-fi or fantasy stuff, you know, or even well, you're very likely to end up with non-human authors, handmade in fictives, but you know, you can just as easily end up with, uh, you know, even if you're consuming purely things that are based in, that don't include any non-human sentience, right? And nothing to say you won't end up with, for example, the fictive of a dog from a TV series or whatever, right? That's completely reasonable, and you may well end up with headmates that are those things. Okay, non-human dysphoria. Woo, fun, the fun topic. Um, yeah, obviously not necessarily going to get this if you're non-human, but you might. Um, Discomfort of body being wrong, uh, phantom body parts, dysphoria over capabilities of the body as well. You know, those are all things that you might feel and get. Obviously, you're gonna have to learn to deal with them to a degree. You know, it might help to, for example, a lot of us have wings, so we will act like we have wings regardless of the fact that we don't actually have wings. It helps alleviate the some of it to a degree. You know, so as we don't go and do something that will, put us in danger because we don't actually have wings, like jumping off something that you really need to be able to fly to jump off safely. It can be fun. It doesn't cause us any problems to sit or lie like we have wings, um, and are avoiding crashing them. So we will. Um, although we can't avoid the discomfort we get from, I don't know, got to cross this body of water and Vamps is out, and Vamps doesn't like crossing flowing water. Vamps, obviously, he's not used to being able to do that, so it causes him a level of discomfort when he does. Um, but, have to, unfortunately, kind of have to deal sometimes. Yeah. Um, if we figure out more useful tips on coping with it beyond, um, obviously, if you can, dressing up as closer to your true form might help. Acting like you are closer to your true form than the body is might help. Just generally, you know, finding a way to accept the body that you have might well help. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be particularly healthy. Okay. I think that's everything. Yeah. So that's first video on non-human headmates. Hoping to get one together on headmates versus kin, but we'll need to do research on that. We haven't part of the kin community, we never have been. So let us know if you don't want us to do that, because you feel like we disrespect the kin community. That's fair enough. We'll listen to that. And if you've got useful resources for us to do for research on that, hit us up with those as well. That would be brilliant. Anyway, yes, do the YouTube guff, like, subscribe, comment, and we'll talk to you next week. Sphere Systems signing out.